The bones get a little older, huh? Moves a little slower. All right, we've got a schedule that we have to adhere to. I don't know if is the microphone working? Yes. Okay. Good. Thanks. First time we're doing this without a physical mic, so I have no idea. I want to welcome everybody to our first event for, I can't believe, 2012. I unfortunately remember when we were rolling up on 1984, and that was going to be a big deal. This morning's presentation is, I think, going to be informative, productive. We have a very special guest, my friend Annette Kramer from London. She is an excellent coach. Any company learning how to present for purposes of investment or product development and endorsement, she's a whiz, and she'll be Skyping in from London in a little while. First thing I would like to do is to thank our sponsors. Without them, none of this would be possible. Yes, we are always looking for new sponsors and new companies to get involved with us. We do support our sponsors, and some of them, besides the breakfasts, do support us as well in various aspects. There are some dramatic new things coming up from former HVCFI and now ICANN, which I think over the coming weeks and months are going to play out and do some wonderful things for both our organization, the Hudson Valley, and New York State and beyond. We're taking some steps to move what has been a traditional not-for-profit industry, which is incubation and acceleration, into a for-profit, sustainable, actual business. Incubation and acceleration have, for all intents and purposes, been almost exclusively dependent on subsidies and grants for their existence. It's no way to run a business. It's not a business. So we are trying to change some of those paradigms and move not only our organization, but the future of that industry to an entirely different level. So you'll be hearing lots more in the coming weeks and months. What I'd like to do is start off this year with some information about part of this industry which is blossoming and mushrooming, I think, beyond a lot of people's expectations, and that's social marketing, internet marketing, digital development, and where everything fits into this. The U.S. Department of Commerce recently delivered to Congress a comprehensive report on the competitiveness and innovative capacity of the United States. And that report sort of is a call to arms, if you will, highlighting what we could be doing, what we should be doing to promote and sustain American innovation and economic competitiveness. They came up with a couple of initial objectives. One was federal investments in research, education, and infrastructure were critical building blocks for American economic competitiveness, business expansion, and job creation. And that, of course, is always a slippery slope when you consider grants, when you consider additional appropriations, especially in an election year. How does that going to affect what we do? How much can we depend on outside stimulus for our own business development? Second, they came up with was failures to properly invest in and have comprehensive strategies for those areas that have eroded America's competitive position. Well, we gave a lot of manufacturing away. We would love to recapture a lot of manufacturing. We'd love to be the place where innovation is exhibited and demonstrated and manufactured and bought and sold, and once again become the innovation leaders of the earth. And I think we have the wherewithal to make that happen. The third thing they came up with, in a constrained budgetary environment, prioritizing support for these pillars is imperative for America's economic future and will provide a strong return on investment for the U.S. taxpayer. We'll leave that one alone. It's very interesting. One of the things, as you know, that we do is find and help find funding for a lot of our companies that we get involved with. In mid-December, we had a meeting up in Albany with our iClean partners and advisors, and a lot of you in the room were invited to that meeting. And at that meeting, you saw some of the 17 companies now that we're involved with iClean in new innovations, new technologies, new developments, and that's just really the beginning. That's just after our first year of operation with these two organizations, ICANN and the Nanotech Center up in Albany. And I can tell you, innovation, it ain't dead. It's growing. There's a tremendous amount coming out of our universities, out of either necessity or just pure inspiration. Entrepreneurship is alive and well. And we want to help find companies monies. We want to find them opportunities, both domestically and internationally, in order to benefit all of us, because it becomes an ecosystem. In the digital world, we call this, most things happen through word of mouth. I tend to like to call it word of mouse. It's a powerful tool to gain a whole new set of customers. A new era of marketing is unfolding, and digital marketing helps you in your objective to influence behaviors and change marketing strategies for you. The audience who need your product and services are increasingly searching for them online. There was a statistic that 92% of online adults use search engines to find the information on the web. 92%. That's a far cry from when our parents and grandparents went looking through the yellow pages. Remember the yellow pages? We used to sit on them when we were little so we could reach the table. I haven't seen yellow pages in a long time. The 5 C's of content creation and delivery methodology have varying results depending upon how you use them. Now, we've had many discussions on social and internet marketing over the years. Sarah and I were talking on the way up that it might be a really good idea. Some of you might remember, we had a gentleman who lives locally who is the regional business development director for LinkedIn. This might be a great time to bring him back, because a lot of people get on LinkedIn, just as an example, but aren't really sure how to use it. So this might be a good time to bring him back now that all of us are developing more of an understanding of both the actual use and implications and desired outcomes for social and internet marketing. So let's go through some of the 5 C's, and I apologize for the amount of content on the screen, but you're going to have to live through it. The rules for search engine optimization, as we are finding out here at ICON, are changing almost every day. As my friend Al will let us know at some point when he makes a presentation, these are changing rules. The way you reach customers has changed. If we now know that 92% of all adults get their information online, well, duh, that's how we have to reach them. That's how we have to get to them. That's how we have to influence them. So I hope you're all reading this while I discuss this, because I'm not going to read the screen. If anybody wants any of this content later on, just let me know. I'll be happy to send it to you. A lot of this information is getting you and your website onto major search engines. And there are lots of ways to do this. There is not one way that's better than another way, that's better than another way. But as I mentioned, the rules are changing daily, and keeping up with them is darn near a full-time job. Communications. Communications is a very interesting topic, and one that I'm personally enamored with. It's important for you to get email branded with your business name, your logo showing, in order to instill credibility, and the consistency of your message is very important. As in with these breakfasts, we send out invitations, as I'm sure you're all ready to hate me for, 3 times before we actually convene. And it's very interesting to see the analytics and statistics on who responds to the invitations and when. I gotta tell you, I got a lot of responses last night. So it's very interesting to see what people commit to, when they commit, and if there are dollars involved, how they commit, and what the implications of all of this communications is. The other thing that's very important is you, as business owners, communicating with your customers, have to understand how your customers communicate. What might be the best way to get their attention? I do know one company that does not have a website. They will only accept communications from me on a telephone. That's fine. No email, no nothing, just call me on the phone. Well, that works great in most cases, but not for everyone. So find out how your customers want to be approached, want to be communicated with. I must also confess that we have some customers that, frankly, I've never met face to face. It's only been email, it's been Skype, it's been telephone, it's been lots of different ways to communicate. A sense of community. The sense of community is, to me, as you know, having done what we're doing here for 6 years here in the Hudson Valley, very important. Get involved in your community, other networking events, other community-based events. My friend Ralph Mitchell is on the radio darn near every morning complaining about something. And that's one way to keep yourself engaged and involved. And even charity work, not-for-profit work, get engaged with your customers on a non-business level. It helps tremendously. The networking is critical. What you learn, what you do, plus it's a good feeling at the end of the day to get involved. Cutting edge technologies. Well, you know, this is far and away the way business is being done. I'm sure everyone in this room has a computer, has hooked up to the internet. Most of you have smartphones. The technology development, the technology convergence is absolutely at the core of what we do. Learning is different. The way people buy is different. You can look at the statistics, the end of the year statistics on retail purchases off the internet. It's skyrocketing. It's not coming back to the way it was. There are chains that have developed their entire marketing strategies no longer around walk-in traffic, but digital strategies. I'll show you one in just a moment. Conversion. Well, to me, that is absolutely the most important thing we as business owners have to think about. You know who your customer is, you see people come online, getting to your website, learning who you are, learning what you do. How do you convert that customer? No, how do you convert that contact into a customer? They're not a customer until somebody pays you to do something. It's just that simple. They're friends, they're contacts, they're acquaintances, they're associates. They don't become a customer until somebody writes a check or sends you some money. And that, at the end of the day, is what we're all about. This is a strategy that we should all consider, that conversion ratio of being friends versus a customer. Here's the example I'll just point out to you. The first time Starbucks noticed this convergence and intersection was on what Starbucks called Free Pastry Day. Free Pastry Day occurred last summer. Anybody remember Free Pastry Day, or did anybody participate? Very interesting. It was only done on Facebook. And it was only done on Facebook, and it said, if you print a coupon off of our Facebook page, bring it to a Starbucks, they will give you a free pastry. Well, the director of social media for Starbucks commented that he was amazed at the number of people standing in line holding coupons they'd printed out. The impetus for free pastries was the volume of faithful online Facebook followers asking to be included on new products or other company news. The net result was Facebook, Starbucks participation increased from 4 million to 7.75 million Facebook followers within 24 hours. It's staggering. It's a staggering number of people. It was word of mouth, then getting online to Facebook, getting their coupons, and visiting the store and buying something. Yes, they got the pastry. The overwhelming majority bought a cup of coffee or a water to go with it. So there's a lot of validity to this. There's a lot of structure to this. There's a lot of impetus for you to get more involved in learning how to do it. Selfless plug, if anybody needs help, we have some marvelous experts that work with us on a daily basis for our website, for our social and internet media connectivity on a worldwide basis. ICANN right now is affiliated with 25 search engines, with another 75 being considered right now worldwide. And we are a small organization, but as W.C. Fields once said, never show them what you haven't got. And doing business online and doing business digitally says to the world that you're in business. Now, to attract those customers or the contacts, bringing them in, converting them to customers, that's the secret sauce. And we think we've got a pretty good formula, and we'd be happy to share it with anybody here. Is it 9 o'clock yet? Does anybody know? 9:02. 9:02. All right. I want to not be late. So what I want to do next is I want to bring in our guest speaker, since I'm 2 minutes over, and she's going to kill me if I don't do this right. And I want to introduce Annette Kramer. Annette, are you there? Is she there? Somebody give me a heads up. Or do I have to change this? Knock yourself out. Okay, I'll introduce her in the meantime. Annette began her career in the theater. She's a PhD in drama. After teaching at Brown University, she spent the last 20 years in business and education, bringing out the best in everyone. Rather than one-size-fits-all approach, Annette's skills lie in identifying and developing each individual's strengths to bring clients to a higher level of ability in presenting to the press, clients, colleagues, investors, and large gatherings. So, is she there? Annette, you there? No. After that great build-up? Hello?
Hello?
Annette, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. I don't recognize who you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, modesty is everything. Annette's personality is priceless. If this woman can't get you inspired, there's no hope for you.
Oh, bless you.
Are you visual, or are you just? I'm getting my favorite IT person here to bring you in visually as well.
Well, I have my video on,
Okay.
and I can see you guys at a kind of angle.
Oh, good.
I see you from the corner of the room, and I see one person in the front row,
Okay.
and maybe one person in the second row, and that's all I can see.
Well, you can see better than we can. Everybody's waving. Everybody wave.
Everybody wave. You can't see me though.
I can't see you, but we're getting there. Go ahead and start, Annette, and tell people a little bit about what you do and who you are and what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, well, the goal of this exercise is really to get everyone the opportunity to show their best face, their best energy, their best personality to everybody to whom they speak. So this isn't a rehearsed role that you can perform once and then it goes away, or you have to rehearse for every different individual. This is a different way of communicating. It's a different way of thinking about communicating. Can you hear me? Because the sound on this end is kind of strange.
No, we hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Yes, I'm like God here. You can hear me.
I knew God was a female. I just knew it.
So the idea here is to change the way you think about communicating when you're speaking to everybody, because every conversation is a business opportunity. So to make the conversation, to make your presentation, to make your pitch into a conversational kind of thing, so that you can then present to an audience of 100, or you can talk to the person sitting next to you, and kind of the motivation and the outcome are the same, because your attitude about why you're speaking is the same. Does that make sense?
Any questions so far? We're good. Keep going.
Okay. So what I was going to do, I can't really see the audience very well, but I was going to say, you know a little bit about me. I started in the theater, and then I went into business, and I found that business people really had a hard time presenting themselves effectively. Even if they were terrific at what they did, somehow they always got kind of caught up in the details, the way we all do, right? Because we're focused on our details of the results that we need. And they lost a view of the bigger picture, both of what they were doing and what people would understand when they spoke about what they were doing. So I don't know very much about you. Are you all entrepreneurs in the audience? Is there anybody who's not maybe I should do it this way. Is there anybody who's not an entrepreneur in the audience?
I think most everybody is involved in entrepreneurship in one way or another, yes. There's like 20 questions. Remember, I feel like, what's his name? Who was the host? Gary Moore.
Gary Moore. And do most of the people in the audience, or do most of you pitch on a regular basis?
Yes.
Okay. And just for my own, so that I'm not telling you things you already know, can you tell me some of the, maybe 3 of the biggest problems that you find when you're pitching, 3 of the things that you'd like to improve the most, 3 of the things that bother you the most?
All right, you're going to have to participate here this morning. This is interaction. So Sarah has a microphone, and she's going to stick it in somebody's face. Come over here to Ajax. He's a great speaker. So you're on, Ajax. Go ahead. He's a wonderful entrepreneur.
How do I match my energy to the person I'm interacting with?
Okay, that's a good one. What else we got?
What else we got? Somebody. Marcy.
How people see the connection with my business, which is the hotel business, and entrepreneurship, and how we can help in partnership with them.
Great question. Anybody else?
You want more? Somebody else?
Only if it's bothering people, they should be able to say, so I can try to cover it.
We're doing. If we can get the camera focused on them, that would be great.
So I would be interested in any tips you have on helping potential clients and customers clarify what their needs are. Certainly it's asking the right questions, but sometimes some people are very hard to try and get them to clarify specifically what it is that that they need from you to help them answer the questions that you're getting at, if that makes sense.
Okay, can we boil that down to one question? Because you were rambling, I was a little bit confused at where, or is the question...
There you go. So at least some of it's me.
How
Any
to
tips?
clarify?
Any tips on helping? Any tips on helping clients clarify when they're asking you questions? What it is that they need from you?
Okay, I'm gonna just start this off in a different way from the way I was going to start it off. I had this structured in a different way, but the one thing that I think all three of those questions have in common is that there seems to be a lack of connection somehow between you and the people you're speaking to, right? So one person wants to match energy with the people that they're speaking to, and another person wants to show a connection between maybe what seems to be disparate issues, different, your industry and someone else's industry, and the third person wants to clarify what it is that the person wants. So you're all actually looking for information. You're looking to transmit information. And I would say,
Annette, you're fading in here a little bit.
can you hear me?
That's better. Okay.
Okay, I haven't moved. So the first thing I would say is that a really important tip is to get rid of all jargon. The more you can talk in natural language, I know this is counterintuitive, right? Because you're an expert speaking to experts.
Sure.
But what you want to do is the most effective communicators can communicate to anybody, right? If you go onto the TED site and you look at the most effective TED speakers, you will see that they really don't use jargon. They use everyday language. And I think that we're very used to using the language of our industry.
But don't we want to appear smart by using jargon?
I think it's much smarter to be able to explain something in a language that everybody understands. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. One is that even if you have jargon that is supposed to mean something in an industry, it can mean something slightly different to one person than to another, right? So you're talking about clarifying questions that people have. So, if you're talking to somebody in your industry who's from Switzerland, for example, and that particular word has different meaning, you're not going to know that it has different meaning. You're both going to think you're talking about the same thing when in fact you're talking about something different. So the more that you can use natural language, the better. One of the ways to do that is to practice. I'll go into that in a second. All right. So, and that's also a way of showing connections between different industries. So, for example, what you need to do is break down the kinds of things that, the issues that these two industries have in common. Get rid of the jargon, and then you can find the connections. As long as you have the jargon, you're going to have a problem with connections.
Okay.
Now, in terms of energy, that's I'm going to go into it a little bit. I've structured my talk in a way that if I don't then answer this question, you can ask me again, and we'll find another way to answer.
We're losing you just a little bit.
Okay. What I said is that the energy question, I think I can answer in the way that I've structured this little talk. And if I haven't answered it by the end of the talk, you can ask me again.
You got it.
Okay? All right. So the way that I've structured, I told Les from the very beginning, this is the only time I've ever talked about talking.
Everybody get that?
Me, I said to Les I wanted the name of my talk to be, talking about pitching is like dancing about architecture. Because, you can't really do it unless you do it. But I'm going to do my best, and then you can give me a grade at the end. So the way that I'm structuring this is that first I'm going to talk about presentation skills generally. Then I'm going to talk about storytelling generally. And then I'm going to talk about storytelling for investors. Because my understanding was that entrepreneurs in this group are looking for investment. Is that accurate, Les?
Always.
Okay. All right. So presentation skills specifically. I'm sure you understand this, but if you don't, I want to put your mind at ease. Nobody was ever born presenting well to 100 people. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find that. The good news is that 95% of good presentation is practice. 5% is inspiration. So if you get that 95% down, if I can wake you up in the middle of the night and shake you and rattle you, and you can just rattle off whatever it is that you're going to say, the 5% will come. but you can't improvise, you can't be energetic until you know your pitch so well that I could wake you up in the middle of the night and you could say it to me. Okay, so that's number one. The second thing is human beings are creatures of habit. So if you get into the habit of giving good pitches, you will continue to do it. It just won't stop. You will be able to do it. So practice is the first really big, I'll probably say practice more throughout this talk, but practice is the most important thing I can tell you. Okay, the goal of being a good presenter is not to turn you into somebody else. That's not true. You want to be yourself. You want to bring out your own strengths and your own communication styles, because empathy is a chemical reaction. I can tell you from being in the theater that if you are in a room, then you will elicit emotional responses from people in that room, either because of the colors that you're wearing or handling yourself. People can spot a phony a mile away. So you don't want to be someone else. You want to be the best you can be. But that said, still, if you find people are effective and they have effective body language or something, take it, try it, see if it works for you. Make it authentic for yourself. All right? Probably the thing that makes you the most authentic and the most persuasive is remembering why you care about what you're saying, both before you're about to say it and while you're saying it. So if you care, everyone else will care too. If you're fascinated, everyone else will be fascinated too. It's contagious. Emotional reactions are contagious. So you need to remember why you care about this stuff. You need to remember, I know you've done it 100 times. You need to sit down and think, what the heck do I care about? Why am I doing this? What's the point of this? What am I trying to, who cares? If you don't care, change the job. You'll never, that's it. Find a way to care. What else can I tell you? Your presentation is obviously a reflection of your company's credibility. So I can't stress enough how important it is to get this down. If you had a bug in your software, you would not wait around and let it just destroy your company. The same thing goes for your presentation. Your presentation is the most valuable software you will ever have, because people are not investing in your product, they're investing in you.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Nowadays, sort of like this morning, but not exactly, people are communicating by Skype, by digital and telephone. And how do you project? How do you, when a Skype presentation isn't working like it's supposed to, how do you do a workaround? How do you maintain that passion? How do you communicate effectively?
Well, here's a question for you. Do you think I care about what I'm saying?
I sure hope so. I know you do.
Well, can you feel it? I know that first of all, Skype is not ideal, but usually in Skype you could see my face. And if you could see my face and you could see my body language and so on, I think this would be more effective than it is right at the moment. Do you see what I mean? It's hard if you can't see people. We're all very visual. And our culture is very visual, so it's very hard. If you still can't see my picture?
No, I can't see your picture. We're having an issue.
Do you want to try dialing in again?
Technical staff, what do we want to do?
Is this working for you guys or not? Because if not, let's try. It can't hurt anything.
We're okay, or should we dial in again? Let's try dialing in again.
Let's try it.
Let's try
I'll hang
it.
up.
Let's give it a whirl. Let me go communicate with the guys here.
Okay.
Sarah,
Bye-bye.
could you ask Jeremy if he could dial in again? They're going to Plan B. I don't know what Plan B is, but trust me, it's perfect.
That's while they're switching gears.
Yes.
Tell us, Nicole's, her background is in the theater. But
Right.
currently, what does she do?
Annette is a business coach. She works with companies, she works with CEOs, she works with executives, and she helps you prepare you, not your material entirely, but you on how to present your passion, your company, and yourself to clients, to investors, for speeches and presentations. That's essentially what Annette does. Annette started this company a number of years ago. She's very close friends with another one of our advisors and a dear friend of mine. And if anybody could get him to present in front of a large group, you got to be spot on. Oh, here we go. Well, we're getting there.
Can you see me now?
I can see you now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Or good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
It's tea time.
Exactly. So, I mean, isn't that more effective? In answer to your last question, isn't it more effective when you can see me?
Yeah, especially when your face is like 9 feet tall. Wow. It's great.
Put me in Times Square.
Okay. So we're talking about communicating over various forms of Skypes, digital. What's the best way to do this? I mean, should we do this? I mean, we do it at last resort, but how do we display that enthusiasm, the passion over a digital medium?
Well, you're going to have to be the one to answer that question. I mean, if this is not effective, if it doesn't seem to you that this is a passionate appeal, or if it doesn't...
Oh, to me it does. I'm talking about them.
Well, them? Why don't we ask them?
Why don't we ask them? Okay.
Why don't I, the other thing is, why
I'm
don't I
going
just...
to go my Monty Hall routine. All right.
Why don't I say a few more things, see if it works different from the way that it did when you could just hear my voice. How's that?
How's that? Is it more effective to see Annette visually versus than just see her voice?
Definitely it is.
Definitely it is.
Well, yes, we certainly sensed your enthusiasm.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. This is just my opinion. I'm not God or anything. My opinion is, having worked in the theater, which is a very, interactive medium, if there's a person in the room or the image of a person in the room and that person is alive,
Track shoes on.
you can get the energy across. It's not as effective as if you're in the room really,
Right.
right? But I don't think that's a reason not to communicate. If you have things to say, you got things to say, you got to say them.
Well, we have lots to say. We have lots
Clearly.
to say. Especially this guy here has lots to say and says them regularly, and we're trying to get him to be more effective in the way he says them.
Okay, so let me go on to the storytelling part
Go
of
ahead.
this. Okay, so first of all, in the presentation skills section of this enterprise, I also just want to make a point about slides. Slides never sold a thing. Okay, in fact, I would say that slides are very ineffective because what they do is they set you up to be doing multimedia. And if you're not an expert in multimedia, that's a problem. It's distracting. So what happens is somebody looks at your slide, they look at you, and there's what I call the space out factor. So people can look at the slide and then they lose your train of thought. They may not tune in again until the end of the slide. If you say, you don't have to show.
Hold on. We're getting a little communications glitch. Just give it a second. That's better. All right, try it again.
If you have a slide, you're splitting your audience's attention. Okay, so the goal is really not to let your slides lead the presentation or to depend on your slides. Slides don't sell anything.
Right.
Energy sells things, and your energy sells things, and your storytelling ability does the work. You really don't want to leave any distractions. If you have a slide that says something that you can't say with your mouth, put it up. If you can say it with your mouth, don't put it up.
All right, now that's contra to what I was taught, where you have slides and let people read the slides, but you never read what's on the slide.
Okay, here's a question for the audience. How effective is it when people put up slides for you to read and they're talking at the same time?
It's not, I read the slide and ignore what you're saying.
Exactly. Okay, so the goal for this exercise is to get people to buy you. Forget your product, forget the rest of it. You want them to trust you and to be interested and curious. So the way that I talk about presentation, actually never call them presentation. They're make them conversation.
Hold on. Just we're having a communications thing, so Go.
You want to make a presentation, not a presentation. You don't want to be talking at people. What you want to do is you want to start a conversation that your listeners want to continue. And what that means is you don't talk at them, you don't inundate them with data, you tell them a story. And out of that story come questions, come interest, come curiosity. And that's how you get the conversation going. If you have the last word, you lose.
Give me an example of a story.
Well, there are loads of stories. Well, let me go into the storytelling part and maybe
Great.
I'll answer your question, okay? Okay, so all conversations are really bits of stories that are put together, that are continued, that are interrupted, right? Everything's really a narrative. What I'm telling you is a narrative. The most probably common investor presentation story is that of the reluctant hero. I was sitting around my house and I was minding my own business, and all of a sudden I noticed that nobody could staple their hands together. And I realized what could happen if people could staple their hands together. And even though I didn't want to, I ran out, figured out this idea, and then this happened, and this happened, and that's a story, right? And versions of this story are the most common kind of investor presentation structure. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So when you're telling a story, you have to be aware every time you get up and give what people call a presentation and what I call starting a conversation, you do it through a story. You have to be aware that you're telling a story, and you have to be aware that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, I know this may sound very deliberate and may sound very uninspired, but you have to get the structure down. Structure is our friend. Okay? Transitions are key. So when you're going from the beginning to the middle, you need a transition. When you're going from the middle to the end, you need a transition. And all between the different sections, you need transitions. It's essential to show your listener where you're going. Suspense is a bad thing in a short talk. You want to tell people where they're going. We're all like children. We want to know what's happening. We want to know what's going to happen next. And once we know that, we feel comfortable. Okay, don't lose them. Don't make people work too hard. If you need help structuring your story, use note cards. Get different colors for different sections, write it all out, make sure you know which piece goes in which piece, and then you'll know when you need a transition. The point of the pitch, again, is not to give people data. Nobody ever made a decision based on data. They make a decision based on the feelings that your data supports, right? Your story creates the feelings. The data supports the feelings. It's all about getting people to feel something, not to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? A pitch needs its own internal logic. The reason that you're there, obviously, is to get money, but the pitch itself needs its own internal logic. So, again, is it a reluctant hero story? Is it structured as a reluctant hero story? Is it structured as a series of growing internal stories? So, this is what I did, and here's a story about that. This is what happened. This is a story about that. Whatever structure you choose, it has to have its own internal logic throughout the pitch. And that's really all I have to say about storytelling for the second.
Does anybody have any questions about storytelling?
Well, let me just go on to the investor thing, and then you can ask as many questions as you want. Because this narrative, my talking about talking is I find it ineffective, but maybe you'll like it, and I think interaction's better. But let's try it anyway, okay? So for investors, you've got 8 sections for every presentation or every conversation. Every conversation with an investor should include 8 sections. Okay? Problem, solution, current market, competition, how much money you want, your exit, which really means when do they get their money back, the financials, and the team. Now, they don't all have to be individual. You can mix them together. But you have to get to the money part by the 3rd minute of a 5-minute pitch. 2nd minute if you're better. Because you have to realize that what investors, I don't know if you've ever seen this New Yorker cartoon where there's a dog and underneath the caption says, blah, 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 rover, blah, 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 food, blah, 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 rover. what a here kind of thing, right? This is what investors hear. Blah, blah, blah money, blah, blah, blah revenue, blah, blah, blah exit. Okay? So you need to know what they're listening for when you put this together. But that doesn't mean you just talk about that. You have to integrate this into a story. And that's it. That's all I have to say for the moment. So please ask away. Questions?
Okay. I want to know where's your English accent?
I left it in the other room.
I know. Any questions? Comments? Somebody? Al, go ahead. We'll come back.
I think your stuff is really, really right on, because we all do buy emotionally and justify rationally. Go into their island, figuring out where their head's at, what's in it for them, which is Rover food, Rover. The only suggestion I might throw to you is this whole idea of pitch, and I know it's real hot the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I do sales coaching. I was an advertising exec for years, and people don't like to be pitched. Pitched is manipulative.
No. Pitch is not my word. Pitch is not my word.
I know. It's a buzz term now. People who don't sell talk about the pitch. People who are sold to don't like to be pitched. They like to be presented how they're going to make money or be benefited too. But I think what you do is great, and the whole thing about nonverbal communication and energy, that's all we do is we pass on energy, and once the energy levels meet and they buy into it, then they want all the data. So I really would love to have had this thing taped and really listen to it, because there's a real gold mine of information in your presentation.
No, that's very kind. I guess what I should do is just clarify. When I use words like pitch and presentation, I use them so that everybody knows what I'm talking about. I mean, when I'm working with a group of people for more than an hour, those words disappear. What I think of in terms of the way people communicate with each other, with large groups of people, is, as I said, it's a conversation, right? The goal of this exercise is to create the atmosphere of a conversation, not to be pitched at, not to be spoken at. And the way that I look at working with people is that it's a collaboration. So if I have a client, when I have a client, that person provides the information about him or herself and about what it is that he or she is trying to do. And what I do is I give them feedback on how effective they are at getting me to understand that, to get me to engage. But I agree with you. I think pitch is a terrible word. I think presentation is a terrible word. And I think that what's that? PowerPoint's the devil.
I love PowerPoint. All right, who else has a comment? Somebody else had a question? Marcy, go ahead.
I'm in the hotel business, like I said before, and I do corporate sales and marketing throughout New York State and the tri-state area. And I always tell my general manager that I never ask for business, because if I were asking for business to the people I see, 4 or 5, maybe 18 times a year, they would look at me and run to the nearest door. So I never ask for the business, but I ask about their business. I ask about what they're passionate about. It might be fishing. It's all connected. And they already know what I do and what I want from them. But you have to relate as a human being, because that's what we're missing really in society, and especially now with computers, that you don't really get the personality of people. So for me, and I've been doing this for over 15 years, it works very effectively for me. And that's what I would say to what you're saying about pitching. I don't see the word pitching. I know exactly what you're speaking on, is the fact that that connection with other people is making that connection that you make with them memorable person to person. Exactly.
And there's different ways you can do that. You can, again, you start a conversation, which is exactly, and one of the challenges of this dynamic that we're having here, me on Skype and you there, I don't know anything about any of you. So I'm speaking to you as though you've pitched once, right? So obviously there's a lot of things that I don't know about you, but I do think that, I think you're right on, and I'm sure you're very successful, because first of all, people love to talk about themselves. So ask somebody a question and let them talk about themselves, and they will think you are the smartest person in the world. The longer you let them talk about themselves, the happier they are. I mean, that's just life, right? And sometimes that's the kind of conversation you have to have. Sometimes it's a different conversation. And when you talk about how do you match your energy with the other person, you do it the same way you would do it in a conversation that you sit next to an airplane.
So let me ask you a question. So we're dealing with some of us who like PowerPoints. Okay, love PowerPoints. You know, we're always pitching for clients. We're always begging for resources, et cetera, et cetera. Would you not use multimedia, but leave the presentation as a handout at the end?
Yes. I would not divide people's attention. If you have a slide of something that illustrates, like there's some presentations are kind of, I hate the word presentation, I'm just using it for a shortcut, but some of those slide deck things are a little bit clever, because if you have a picture of somebody screaming when you're talking about something upsetting, it really brings the point home. Mm-hmm. But I think the goal with a slide deck is you don't want anything on a slide that requires more than about a quarter of a second's attention from the person who's sitting there.
I'm a terrible offender.
If they look at the slide and it takes a quarter of a second to register, they'll look right back at you, and there's really no more information to get from the slide. In fact, they may re-engage with you more effectively. So it's not that slides themselves are evil, it's what people put on them. I wouldn't put words on them unless it's a transition word. Opportunity, one word maybe, but again, nothing that would take more than a quarter of a second to absorb.
So images versus words, as Jim just said.
Images versus words, but it has to be something you can't live without. If it's something you can live without, get rid of it. Because people you want them to pay attention to your story, you want them to pay attention to how you're interacting with them. That's the value of any kind of communication, is the interaction, the engagement, what that lady called, what did you call it? You called it, maybe you called it engagement, I don't know. But that kind of thing, that dynamic is what you're looking for.
Any other questions? Floyd, well, we have one, and then.
Les had a question about transitioning from the word of mouth to the word of mouse. Any thoughts?
Well, I think live people are the best. I think if you can get a live person in the room with you, that's terrific. If you can't, then we are visual, and we will make that transition with a convention. I mean, you obviously feel that you can talk to me because you've asked me a question, right? So I'm a real person. It's not as effective, but it's okay, I think. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, I guess.
Well, we had this discussion about digital versus interacting with your customer digitally versus what we're doing right here face to face. Word of mouth is as a result of word of mouth. And how do you transition from mouse to live? Is that correct?
How do you transition?
If you meet, go ahead. If you meet somebody digitally, you know, we've already gotten to know each other, and how do you make that progression? Like integrating, I just read a book the other day, it's a very thin book, on small talk. How do you initiate small talk in a networking session to get people to open up?
Okay, that's a whole other subject.
We won't touch on that today.
That's another subject. I think, you know, in a way, it's certainly related. It's about listening. It's about trying to pay attention and find connections. It's always about finding connections. When you say you get to know somebody digitally, do you mean by email, or do you mean by Skype, or do you mean by, what exactly do you mean?
A lot of email. A lot of us communicate by email.
Okay, one of the things, I'm very big advocate of the telephone. I think old technology can do something that no new technology can do, because it's an actual voice. And and if I talk to you on the phone, you would have a different experience of me, and a more, I think, direct experience of me than you're having now, even though you can see me.
Right.
And with the companies that I consult to, I'm always telling them, pick up the phone. pick up the phone. When there gets to be online dating, perfect example, right? You email, you pick up the phone. That's how it works.
That's how it works. All right, we have 2 more questions, and then I'm going to let you go. Floyd, we have one there, and then Jim will, and if anybody else wants, we'll squeeze it in. Well, as long as you can, kid.
First of all, you're at a disadvantage. You can't see us very well. We can see you. But I want to tell you just how important what you do is. Because how many insufferable meetings have we gone to by people from, let's say, a nameless company, maybe the initials might be IBM. Okay, so, and they were awful because they could not communicate it. Yeah, they were stuck on a PowerPoint. However, photographs, 85% of learning is visualization. By the way, I'm the president of the American Science and Technology Center, so we're trying to create kind of an Epcot in New York, something a save the world type of project. So it's very important that that we succeed at this, and this is the bottom line of what you're talking about is success. And many of those people in business meetings have failed. The other thing is you have to have listeners in this economy who can listen and do respect what you're trying to do. A lot of people only have that Wall Street mentality about greed. How much money are you going to give me after this thing is done? So getting funding is a very important issue. We're probably going to eventually go after the Gates Foundation. Here's my question. I mean, how do you get somebody like that somebody is knocking on his door? The competition to get to somebody like that is huge. How do you differentiate yourself so that your message rises above all the others?
Well, I think this is part of there are a couple of things that you said that one thing I disagree with. I don't think you can say that. I'm used to be a teacher, and 95% of learning for some people is visual, but for other people it can be different. And I think that one of the really important things, maybe not digitally, I don't know about the whole digital thing, but in terms of learning in an open space with other people, at least some people read and they learn more, some people hear and they learn more. So I think one of the things when you're talking to somebody or dealing with someone is to figure out how they learn best, how they absorb information best before you come up with your story. So if in your field 95% is visual, I would build a visual story, right? Because you're paying attention to the way that people absorb information most effectively, most comfortably. And then the question is, what is the story that everybody's missed? Somehow or other, there's got to be something about you and why you care about what you're doing and what you're doing that is different from other people. Now, if whatever that story is doesn't interest the Gates Foundation, there's nothing you can do about it. But I think that all you can do is build the strongest story you can about the value of what it is that you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. The thing that's exacerbating all of this now is the economy. I mean, America and the world is on its knees right now, so people are not listening the same way as they did before. However, I will agree that the heart zone is the one thing that all of them have in common. Donald Trump, Gates, all of the others have that heart zone. So if you talk about something that tugs at their heartstrings, I think that's going to have a much greater chance of success. So in that sense, I do believe that your storytelling is very important. But when it comes time to ask them for money, you better have something which is bulletproof. I mean, it's got to be something that really rips their heart out.
Okay, now here's what I would say. I would say that curiosity is a drive like sex or wanting to eat, or I think curiosity is the strongest ally you've got. And if you can make people curious, they will bore through buildings to find out the answer. I mean, how many of you have sat on the internet trying to figure out something, driving you crazy until, you can spend hours doing it, right? I mean, I think that curiosity, as much as pathos or happiness or excitement, is a key driver in response. And it's something that I think people forget about as something that can be really helpful to you if you use it effectively. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yes, it does. And just let me add one more thing to it. I know you're on the schedule here, but We're trying to build a we're trying to build a massive project, and we're going to try to use a model kind of like Disney did, where he started out with cartoons, then movies, then his television show, and eventually theme parks. That kind of approach to things. But investors are skeptical these days. I mean, in terms of the amount of money they have and what they're going to spend money on. I think our culture has gone awry. I think that we have met the enemy, and it is us, because now we prize Kim Kardashian and Madonna and Justin Bieber and all of those above everything else. Do you agree about the culture being a problem?
You know, I think that you can tell lots of different stories about our culture. I think you can also tell the story that the stock market stinks and people have to invest in something, so why not invest in a company? You know, I think if you can find whatever you're looking for, you'll find. And I don't disagree with you that celebrities have a value that they've never had before without having ever accomplished anything. I don't disagree with that. But I can't make a general comment about culture because I think there's so much of value, and people are still people, and there are trends, right? Trends begin and end. The Kardashians will disappear, somebody else will come in. You know, I think you have to go into things with the attitude, this is an interesting problem. I mean, if you can keep yourself curious, this is my life thing anyway. If you can keep yourself curious about how to answer a question, how to solve a problem, how to make it work, if you can keep yourself curious, you win.
Amen.
Because eventually you'll do it.
We agree.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question. Anybody? One observation. Hold on. The microphone is en route.
First of all, thank you for your time. It's been absolutely fascinating, and you're great visually.
Well, thank you.
Thinking back on some of the things we talked about, you know, we used the words pitch and presentation. I guess if I'm hearing, the one word I take away is conversation. And thinking about when I've done presentations and asked to do things at conferences, and kind of along the lines of what Les is talking about, the first thing you do is run to say, okay, what's the PowerPoint going to look like? But now I get, what's the PowerPoint going to look like that I'm going to leave with the audience, not that I'm going to use with the audience. What I'm going to use with the audience are possibly some visuals, but conversation.
Okay, this is my suggestion, and you can throw this out the window. You know what they say about things that are free, right? They're worth what you pay for them.
This ain't free, kid.
My suggestion is that the first question you ask is, what are you trying to accomplish? And what are you trying to accomplish? And what do you think the story would be that would help you accomplish it? And the conversation part of it gets built into the story.
Agreed.
That's how it's.
Yes.
And by the way, you know, if you guys, I'm in New York sometimes. If you want me to come work with you, I don't even sit down when I'm talking most of the time, so I have no idea how I'm coming across. But you know, if you ever have pitches, and I know it's a word, forget it. If you ever have conversations you want to start, and I happen to be in the neighborhood, and you want some help starting them, we know.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, Annette. I know you're coming in a couple of weeks, and lunch is on me, so.
Great, thanks.
Perfect. Annette, thank you for your time. This has been a wonderful session.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks, everybody, for being there.
See you soon. Take care. Well, I don't know about you, but I learned a lot this morning. I still love PowerPoint. I can't help it. Leo.
I didn't want to make a big deal of her, but the fact is some people react visually, so that when you're speaking and you see the PowerPoint, I find that I absorb more of what the conversation is about by reading it than I do by listening. It's possible that visually I'm able to get a better understanding of what the sentence beginning to end is.
You may, but let me ask you a question. Have you ever run into a person?
No, I agree with you. I don't think we should eliminate the props, the visuals, and the other aids because you don't know what it is that some individual may be able to respond to and absorb more of.
Right.
And although I was not paying as much, as the gal said, as much attention to what you were saying, I really was absorbing a tremendous amount of what the dialogue or the monologue was because I was able to read it and I had that visual aid.
Right. But sometimes you get in front, a person comes in front of you with a presentation, and if that person isn't perhaps as articulate or dressed the right way or is tall enough or whatever, you might not pay as much attention to that person as you would to the stuff on the screen.
Conversation. If someone started a conversation with me and pulled out a PowerPoint, I think I would turn around and go home. I mean, when you're talking about making a presentation to a group,
Right.
to an audience,
The information is critical.
I think the way the information, the more ways you can dispense the information, the more opportunity you may have to turn around.
But that's why they call it visual aids.
I agree with you. She said put it away, and I.
Well, we don't have to agree with everything.
She didn't say put it away. She didn't say put it away. She said minimize it.
Minimize.
And use it for images, for things that you can't say.
Right. John.
There's no wrong or right way to do anything. So, but I think 5 out of 10 PowerPoint presentations, the problem that we find with them is that people are using the PowerPoint as a tool to organize their thoughts, and they should do a PowerPoint presentation, put it away for a week, come back, and then decide what's absolutely necessary. Because there's always too much in the PowerPoint.
Always. I'm guiltiest. I am.
Guy Kawasaki is the guy who says, tells you how to do it. 5 slides, end of story. You can't do it, then you're over.
Right.
I think it's not only though the content, it's doing some sort of demographic sort to see who in the group can understand what's in different levels of the PowerPoint presentation. You grab them with the emotional appeal, and then you like with IBM, when I ran focus groups, I didn't really want to talk with the managers who didn't understand the technology. I wanted to talk to the engineers who understood what was going on. And the presentations were totally, totally different. So you do have to look at the demographic of who your
One's
audience
trying to
is.
explain and one's trying to sell. Keith.
I have to admit, though, that when we didn't have visual contact with her, she was just talking to us.
You were more attentive.
I was when there was no visual there, I was more daydreaming and, hearing what she was saying and not hearing what she was saying. But when she came on the screen, I could focus on her and hear exactly what she was saying.
See, we planned that. Floyd, go ahead.
Here's the problem with what she just did. Out of sight, out of mind. Our short-term memory is only 40 seconds. So as soon as she's done, that's it. It's over. So I think it should be more of a before, during, and after, like you said. You sent 3 messages out for this meeting today. So it's what did you do before, so we knew who she was and so forth, and then seeing her and listening, interacting with her. But she could have had, if she had, some visualization, some slides and things. That would have been the court evidence. And almost like to a jury. And that's who these funders are. A guy like Gates, he's going to want to see those stats. Then after, are you sending him home with some kind of package that's simple? So it really can't be just a one-shot deal. And as soon as she was done speaking, that's it. It's gone. We're on about our day.
Okay. Anybody else? Great. I hope this was helpful. I hope we all learned something. Just take something. In making ourselves and our companies more productive, more communicative. I'm not going to use the word pitch anymore, Al. I'm done. I'm done with that word. I'm sorry?
You'll never do another presentation.
I'll never do another presentation. I'll always have conversations. So thank you all for coming this morning. I hope this has been great. We'll do another one. We have a great speaker lined up for next month. If anybody would like to speak, I know Diane's had some good news, but we'll let her do that next month when she's prepared.
I'd like to, because I have to do a presentation, a very short one, like 3 minutes.
No, you have to do a conversation.
A conversation.
Okay, so Diane will tell us some good news next month, and we look forward to seeing you there. I hope this is valuable. Thank you very much for coming. If anybody wants to present or sponsor, we'd love to have you.